Roasted nut butters, processing raw nuts into high-quality specialty nut butters. Hello. It's great to dive into the world of specialty nut butters with you. There's something incredibly satisfying, almost magical, about watching a pile of hard, crunchy nuts transform into a glossy, drippy, spreadable gold. If you've only ever had store-bought peanut butter, you're in for a massive upgrade. When you control the process, you control the roast, the salt levels, and the specialty add-ins that turn a basic spread into a gourmet experience. We are going to walk through this entire journey together, from selecting the right raw nuts to the science of the roast, the mechanics of grinding, and the art of flavor profiles. Grab a coffee, and let's get started. The philosophy of the raw material. Before we even turn on the oven, we have to talk about the nuts. The quality of your butter is 100% dependent on the quality of your raw material. When you buy raw nuts, you want to look for freshness. Nuts have a high oil content, and those oils can go rancid if they've been sitting in a warm warehouse for 6 months. If you can, buy from a supplier with high turnover. Peanuts. For a classic butter, look for runner peanuts. For something more specialty, look for Spanish peanuts, which have higher oil content and red skins, or Virginia peanuts, which are huge and crunchy. Almonds, California. Almonds are the standard. If you want a truly premium butter, look for Marcona almonds from Spain. They are flatter, sweeter, and more buttery. Cashews. These make the creamiest butter. Always buy whole or large pieces. Avoid the tiny shreds, as they tend to burn too quickly during roasting. Hazelnuts. Ideally, you want them blanched, skins removed. Though roasting them with skins on and then rubbing the skins off is a traditional method that adds deep flavor. Pistachios, these create a stunning green, vibrant butter. Look for raw shelled kernels. The science of the roast, where flavor is born. This is the most critical step. Roasting isn't just about cooking the nut. It's about the Maillard reaction. This is a chemical reaction between amino acids and reducing sugars that gives browned food its distinctive flavor. Why roast raw nut butters exist, but they often taste green, or beanie. Roasting does three things. Develops flavor. It brings out the smoky, toasted notes. Structural change. It makes the nuts more brittle, which allows the cellular structure to break down easier during grinding. Oil release. Heat coaxes the natural oils out of the solids, which is what gives you that drip, the technique. Set your oven to about 325 degree Fahrenheit to 350 degree Fahrenheit. We go low and slow for specialty butters. If the oven is too hot, you'll burn the outside while the inside remains raw. Spread your nuts in a single layer on a heavy-duty baking sheet. Do not crowd the pan. You want air to circulate. For peanuts, almonds, 12 to 15 minutes. For cashews, pistachios, 8 to 12 minutes. They are more delicate. For pecans, walnuts, 7 to 10 minutes. They have very high oil content and burn in a heartbeat. The sniff test. Your nose is your best timer. The second the kitchen starts smelling like toasted heaven, pull them out. They will continue to carry over cook for a few minutes once they are off the heat. The cooling phase, patience is a virtue. Once the nuts come out of the oven, do not throw them straight into the processor. If you grind hot nuts, you risk seizing the butter. The steam escaping from the hot nuts can introduce moisture into the oil, turning your butter into a thick, gritty paste rather than a smooth liquid. Let them cool until they are just warm to the touch, about 10 to 15 minutes. This warm but not hot stage is the sweet spot where the oils are fluid but the steam is gone. The grinding process, turning solid to liquid, this is where the physical transformation happens. To make high quality nut butter at home or in a small specialty shop, you generally use a high-speed food processor or a stone refiner melanger using a food processor. The crumb stage. For the first minute, the nuts will just turn into a coarse meal or flour. The ball stage, after 2 to 3 minutes, the oils will start to release and the meal will begin to clump together. It might even form a big ball that rolls around the processor. And this is the awkward teenage phase of nut butter. Keep going. The liquid stage, after 5 to 8 minutes, depending on the power of your motor, the ball will break down. The mixture will suddenly turn into a thick, glossy paste. Pro tip. If your processor is getting hot, stop. Give the motor a break for 5 minutes. A hot motor can cook the butter further and ruin the texture. The stone refiner for professional specialty texture. If you want that ultra-smooth melt-in-your-mouth texture found in high-end brands, use a stone melanger. This device uses heavy granite wheels spinning on a granite base. It grinds the particles down to less than 20 microns, the point where the human tongue can no longer detect grit. This process can take 12 to 24 hours, but the result is a nut butter that flows like silk. Crafting specialty profiles. A plain nut butter is great, but a specialty nut butter is an experience. This is where you get creative with infusions and inclusions. 1, the salt factor. Never use standard table salt. Use high-quality sea salt or Himalayan pink salt. The minerals in these salts enhance the nuttiness without just making it salty. For a specialty touch, try smoked sea salt in a peanut or almond butter. 2, sweeteners. Adding liquid sweeteners, honey, maple syrup, agave, is tricky. Because they contain water, they can cause the nut butter to seize and become hard. The secret, if you use liquid sweeteners, add them at the very end and stir by hand, or use a dry sweetener like coconut sugar or maple sugar during the grinding phase. Then 3, fat additions. Sometimes certain nuts, like almonds, are a bit dry. To get that spoonable texture, you can add a neutral oil. Macadamia nut oil, the gold standard for adding fat because it is incredibly healthy and tastes like butter. Refined coconut oil, good for a firmer butter. It solidifies at room temperature. 4, gourmet flavor combinations. Dark chocolate and sea salt almond butter. Add high-quality cocoa powder and a touch of coconut sugar during the last 2 minutes of processing. Chai-spiced cashew butter. Infuse with ground ginger, cardamom, cinnamon, and cloves. Maple pecan butter. Use pecans and add maple sugar and a pinch of cinnamon. Espresso bean. Peanut butter. Throw in a tablespoon of roasted espresso beans during the grinding phase for a caffeinated crunch. Texture control, smooth versus crunchy. If you love crunchy butter, don't just stop the processor early. That will give you gritty butter, not crunchy butter. The right way to do crunch. Roast your nuts. Take about 1 to 4 cups of the roasted nuts and pulse them in the processor until they are pea-sized pieces. Remove them and set aside. Process the rest of the nuts until they are completely smooth and liquid. Fold the reserved pieces back into the smooth butter with a spatula. Troubleshooting common issues. My butter is too thick or pasty. Cause, either the nuts weren't roasted long enough, oils didn't release, or you added a liquid sweetener that caused seizing. Fix, add a teaspoon of neutral oil like grapeseed or macadamia oil and process for another 2 minutes. Issue, the butter is bitter. Cause, over roasting, specifically with walnuts or hazelnuts. The skins can be very bitter. Fix, for hazelnuts, always try to remove the skins. For a batch that's already bitter, you can try to balance it with a bit more salt and a touch of sweetness. Issue, the oil is separating. Cause, this is actually a sign of high quality. It means you didn't add stabilizers like palm oil. Fix, simply stir it back in or store the jar upside down so the oil travels through the butter. Storage and shelf life, because you aren't adding preservatives, you need to be mindful of storage. Room temperature, our freshly made jar of nut butter will last about a month in a cool, dark pantry. Refrigeration, if you want it to last 3 to 6 months, keep it in the fridge. Note that it will firm up significantly, so you may need to let it sit out for 10 minutes before spreading. The jar, always use glass. Plastic can sometimes leach flavors into the oils over time. A glass mason jar is perfect. The professional touch, tempering and jarring when you pour your butter into the jar. You might notice tiny air bubbles. If you're selling this or giving it as a gift, you want it to look professional. Gently tap the jar on the counter several times after filling to force the air bubbles to the surface. Let the jar sit open until the butter has reached room temperature before putting the lid on. This prevents condensation forming inside the lid, which could lead to mold. Summary of the workflow. To wrap this all up into a repeatable process, start by sourcing the freshest raw nuts you can find. Treat the roasting process with the respect it deserves. It is the soul of the flavor. Allow the nuts to cool just enough to shed their steam, but keep their warmth. Grind with patience, allowing the friction and the blades to do the heavy lifting of releasing those natural oils. Finally, season with intention. High-quality salts and dry aromatics will always yield a better result than cheap additives. Making specialty nut butter is a craft. Each batch might be slightly different based on the humidity in the air or the specific harvest of the nuts. Embrace that variation. That is what makes it specialty and artisanal.